Sucio Talk. Sucio Talk in the studio in Oakland. I haven't been mugged yet. My car hasn't been broken into yet. But looking forward to it. You know, looking forward to when it happens. Shout out to any of you guys out there who are dealing with it, you know. So I'm hanging out with someone here today in the studio, very special guest, chef. Tell the world who you are.
Thanks for having me. My name is Anthony Paone. I'm the chef of the Bull Valley Roadhouse in Port Costa, California.
Dope, man. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I've had your wife on the show.
Yep.
Golden State Pickle Works. Did she change the name?
So she's operating two companies, Golden State Pickle Works and Collective Cultures. Collective Cultures is more of her salad dressings and condiments, and Golden State Pickle Works are more of the actual vegetables.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood. What made her sort of do that, make that change?
It's complicated, but suffice it to say that there is some thought around collective culture. She evolved to where she believes Collective Cultures is the better name.
Right.
And maybe an emphasis on, there's more of a gap in the market on salad dressings and aiolis and sauces in the fermented space. There's a ton of kimchi, there's a ton of cucumbers, there's a ton of slaw out there. And while sales are good and a very loyal clientele, for this niche she wanted to hit, she decided to use that as an opportunity to sort of use this new name.
Right. Okay. When does the full switch happen?
So I'm not sure it's going to. I think she's going to operate both businesses.
Right.
Since they both have a slightly different mission statement under the rubric of being fermented foods. She's going to go at it with these two companies as separate entities.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Diversifying her bonds.
Kind of.
Love
yeah.
it. So, Anthony, you know, here on Sucio Talk,
We
take
like
it
to
all
go
the way
way
back.
back.
Oh, yeah. He already knows. He already knows. He's got it ready. All right. Where were we born?
I was born in Staten Island, New York.
Oh, dope.
Yeah.
Shout out to Staten Island.
Have you been there?
Yeah. I seen the Wu-Tang videos.
Not the greatest place, but
Yeah.
I had a very nice, fine upbringing.
Right.
Yeah. Loving family, you know, solidly lower middle class, but nothing, you know, we weren't starving. Italian American, definitely highly regarded food and company if the food wasn't anything to write home about. Pardon me. Yeah, I went to high school there, did some community college, and realized community college was going to be for me. And I dropped out, and I was living on my own. My mother noticed at the time I was a vegetarian, and I liked to cook for myself. And teenage rebellion, vegetarian. That was my way of rebelling. And then she called me up one day and said, "I saw this ad for cooking school. I know you're deciding what to do with your life. You want to check it out?" And I was like, "Yeah, great idea." And we went to Manhattan. The New York Restaurant School was in Canal and Varick Street. Doesn't exist anymore. I think it was a beauty college before that. And it was short-lived, but it was chefs in the New York restaurant scene who were between jobs who would teach. And I immediately, I don't think my loans cleared, and I just had the white hat on, and I was already there. It happened that quickly. And that could have been, a rash decision at 21. Luckily, it wasn't. I loved every minute of it, and to this day. So luckily, but I know a lot of people. I think there were 8 or 9 people in my class only, which is why it tells you why that school doesn't exist anymore. But I would, maybe 1 or 2 is still in the business, max. So I'm lucky that the rash decision I did make paid off into a career I love, but it was very quick. And it was a great experience. I don't recommend anybody go to cooking school ever. There's more to learn by actually doing and not taking out all the loans and everything on the internet and all the books that are available. To saddle yourself with that loan is, I think, the wrong decision to make. But for me, I had a great time. It was wonderful. Part of the education was actually walking out in the streets and going to Zabar's or going down to Dean and DeLuca, and that was still an interesting thing to do as a class. And so we had a 3.5-hour culinary class, and then an hour break, and then a 3-hour management class. And I loved it so much, like so much. Everything about it appealed to me in spades. And then I graduated and started working in New York. And the first place I worked at was, let me know if I'm going too fast.
No worries.
Okay.
When you're on a train of thought, hey, I'm taking the train.
Cool. I got a job, so I did an externship, and that time it was free. So I worked 3 12-hour days at a place called March, which was on 51st and 1st. I lived on the Lower East Side at the time. And I would walk there every day, and it was like a good 60 blocks. Walk home every night. I was living and loving it, and, it was just so great to me. So March was when I was there going for, Ruth Reichel was coming in. She was the Times critic at the time, and they were going for 4 stars. It was a nice little brownstone. Chef Wayne Nish, who is probably retired now, but I worked for free. I got 1 Rolling Rock at the end of the night. That was my pay.
Right.
But it was great. It was invaluable. I'd never seen anything like it. They were, a fine dining restaurant. And I remember distinctly at one point the dishwasher goes out, the machine, and they just throw me plates and I'm washing them. And the chef was on the phone with the plumber, and he said something to the effect of, "This isn't a rib joint in Queens.
Right.
We're a fine dining restaurant." As if the plumber gives a shit what kind of restaurant you consider
Right,
yourself.
right.
It's a list of things to plumb, not to itemize.
Things to plumb,
right?
Yeah.
Because you think she's a better chef than the rib joint in Queens or whatever. So I just thought that would just turn me off, like, big time to that kind of
Right.
thinking.
The arrogance.
Yeah, I just that's one thing as a theme with me that I just don't like. Be confident, take yourself seriously, but we're making food. It's not, it's not a cancer hospital. It's not a,
Right.
You know what I mean? Anyway, so I worked there for the requisite time. I could not. They said that I could keep working there for free if I could afford that, and I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
So I got what it amounted to 2 jobs at the same time. So Wayne Nish was from the Quilted Giraffe. So in the 80s, that was a big deal in New York. Barry Wine, the Quilted Giraffe. They had all types. He was one of the first guys to go to Asia and bring back like dry seahorses and all this just crazy stuff, little Sawagani crabs, all this stuff that passed for exotic at that time. And so the Quilted Giraffe was like a tree where like a whole bunch of Wayne Nish was from there. And then I got a job for this guy, Larry Kolar. I think he's a private chef up in Long Island now or something, but he was also from the Quilted Giraffe and the Sign of the Dove in Arizona, 205 or 365, whatever. Anyway, all those restaurants were connected in New York. So I took this job with him, and he had these 2 restaurants, a Greek place on 50, right around the corner from March. They're called Eros, terrible name. And then even a worse name, Casa La Femme on 150 Worcester, which is down in Soho, which has been a million restaurants since. And that was like a North African restaurant. And I really liked the idea of, if I wasn't going to get into this super competitive, the chefs think they're so great to yell at the plumbers on the phone, I want to learn as many ethnic approaches as possible. Right? So I really dug into that at Eros. It was like a New American Greek type of thing. And at Casa La Femme, New American North African, but lots of spices and learning about geography and all of that was very, very, very interesting to me in cooking and in restaurants and in food. The ability to learn about other cultures and history is just such a big part of it for me. I did that for a while. Those places were crazy. Just Casa La Femme was open until 3 a.m. Served full dinner to 3 a.m. and drunk, rich, young people would come in and order food and not eat it. And, of course, the cooks you have to get to work at 3 a.m.
Right.
I learned a lot, let's put it that way, about what to do and what not to do. I got fired from there.
How'd you get fired?
It was probably a culmination of events. I probably have an authority problem, but folded into that, I think, the 2 owners were young, rich dudes who had, like, Anastasi would have a, what do you call it, all the way to his feet, a mink coat, with one Rolex this way, one Rolex that way. They would come in with their young wives. Their young wives would go home, and they would try and sleep with the staff, right? That was like sort of the image of the place. And I was a young guy, and there was a young waitress there. And we were flirty, nothing more than that. We were just flirty. and that put me in the crosshairs of one of the guys there.
Right.
And then they were just like not nice people, not ethical people, and I think wasn't quiet about that. There was a couple of maybe undocumented people that worked there that weren't treated well as they were trying to build other restaurants. They were just like worked them to death, and I was probably just a loudmouth asshole, and I probably deserved to get fired. I'm not.
Right.
I don't really recall this is almost 30 years ago, but but nobody was great in that whole environment.
Right.
And then I went to an Italian place in the right by the Flatiron Building, that famous building.
Okay, yeah.
Right there, called Filonico. Chef Alan Tardy, he's a wine writer now. Super great. Like this pasta station was, all fresh, boiling, fresh pasta made fresh for lunch, made fresh for dinner, risotto to order. So the risotto comes in, you throw the grains in a pan, and so that was a lot of fun. A very hot station because it was boiling water. And right next to closed New York kitchen. The window was like faced the exhaust of the other building, so you would just be, drenched. It was so great. I loved it so much. That kind of stuff, And they had a wood burning oven in the dining room. We would do, lots of fun stuff there. So that was a really cool experience. After a while, I got a call from a guy I worked with at one of the previous restaurants at Eros, and he said, I moved to San Francisco. The chef never came back, and now I'm the chef. You want to come out here and work? I said, sure. So it was a cold winter. I said, fuck New York. And I jumped on a plane, and I never thought about it before. I never, considered moving to San Francisco. It was never, luckily, it's a great city to move to on the fly if you're looking to change your life.
Especially during that time.
Yeah, it was great. In the early 90s, like 94, 95 was when I got out here. It was great. I hate to be that guy and say like, oh, it's not like I remember it. The city's changed, and everybody could say that.
Facts is facts, dog. Like it's all good.
And there were so many good restaurants. So I flew to town, and there wasn't the internet, so I just would walk a neighborhood, go to restaurants, and ask them for menus. So I would just I still have a box of menus,
right,
from all these places that every once in a while, every couple of years, you pull out, and you're like, damn, the food's a lot different. The menus are very pretty. Oh yeah, I remember eating there, and that kind of thing. So I like having those. That's what I did. I started doing that. I started working in the place he took over was a shitty restaurant in the marina. The triangle there. It's like Fillmore and all the way. It's like all the young, rich, beautiful, blonde kids with their parents' money going to the colleges, just partying all night like a spring break. It was hell. It was terrible. And I was like, this is what this city is about? Like what did I move to? What did I do? On one hand, I'm getting the flying saucers menus and thinking imagining what all the dishes taste like. On the other hand, I'm in the midst of a bunch of, Biffs and Barbies, shotgunning beers in a restaurant where I'm trying to pump out hamburgers. So that didn't last that long. It was totally a party atmosphere.
Yeah.
I got fired there too. So how I got fired there was they asked me to take over as chef. But the chef was my friend who I lived with. And I said, I can't. That's not something I'm comfortable doing. Number one, I'm not ready to be a chef. I'm 24, 25, 24, whatever.
Right.
And number two, he's the reason I came out here. He's my buddy. I'm not going to, be your backup plan so you can fire him and just make me the chef.
Right.
So they said, okay. Next 2 days later, I was fired.
Right.
Well, suffice to say, I didn't want to be working there either. It was my entry into the city. The first night I got to San Francisco, I had stayed in New Mexico, Albuquerque. I had a buddy there. So from New York to Albuquerque, then I flew out here. I flew out late night, got here about midnight or something. My buddy had left me the information. He'll be at this one-night-only hotel, in the Tenderloin. We'll stay there, and we'll sign our lease the next day. So, it's a bad hotel. We stay there one night. It's fine. In the morning, we drive over to Fillmore and Geary, right by State Bird, right across the street, and there's this, 20-story building. And he's like, oh, this is where I got us an apartment. All right, whatever. I'm going to go inside and sign. You stay here in the cab. He goes in and signs, and in the meantime, some dude gets murdered 10 feet in front of me. There was the recycling center. Some guy just pulled the gun out and killed the other guy. The cab driver freaked out. We sped away. I was like, fuck, man. I lived in New York. I didn't see anything like this ever, right? In my whole life, I've seen some depressing stuff, but not that. I was like, my buddy comes out. He's just like, oh, okay, we live here now. And I was like, all right, great. This, a guy just got murdered in the front. You know, that wasn't even a bad part of town, really. You know,
Right.
I was like, damn. So they're there for a while. After I got fired from the City Tavern, what a terrible name.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
City Tavern. Sorry to all the city taverns out there.
Yeah, so there's a lot, actually.
They're probably like, what the fuck?
Yeah. There's actually a pretty famous like East Coast restaurant. I think they were around for like 100 years called that. I think that's why they copied it, yeah.
Got it.
And that was actually owned by one, you know, McCormick and Schmitz and all that.
Yeah.
So it's the McCormick. They sold the son. The son owned it.
Schmick, not McCormick.
Yeah, McCormick. But then I took a job at Real Restaurants. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They have Bix. They used to have Beetle Nut. They have the Roadhouse and I'm escaping my name in Sausalito or Marin. Anyway, the Hotel Griffin, which is right down the block from Boulevard, and I worked there for a couple of years. I worked at Woodward's Garden for a little while. That was a really good restaurant in the 16th and Guerrero. No, that's not the only cross. Anyway, right on the edge of the Mission, two wonderful, two women who were a couple. One was the front of the house, one was the chef. Everything made fresh. It was a really, really sweet spot. They did it for years. I used to like eating there beforehand. And
where are they now?
They just retired, I think.
Okay.
You know, it was right under the overpass there, where that place Coda used to be, down on Mission, all the way at the beginning. Anyway, they would break their windows broken into, all types of shit like that. I felt like, and I totally could be off the mark, that they came from a little bit of money and it didn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, but that could be like me being,
speculation.
Yeah,
chef.
that's total speculation. Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Allegedly,
yeah. Yeah, and then I worked for Real Restaurants for a few years. That was a lot of fun. That was when, like, cooking for sport, meaning just like getting my chops as far as like how many covers can I do, we had this headphones on, and there was a center station that was a grill, so either I was there on the lead expediter, and that was very, very fun. I like cooking on the line a lot. I enjoy it quite a bit.
what do you enjoy about it? Is it the rush?
Everything. I still cook 5 nights a week. 5 days a week. Like this Easter, this Sunday's Easter, you probably forget because you're not in restaurants.
Yeah.
But like, I got like 300 on the book, and I'm on the line cooking from 10 to 8. You know.
I'll tell you what. I still remember going down on,
Really?
Easter Sundays. Oh, of course. Dude, I took over at the Charter Oak, and Chef Cat was like, hey, we do this special. It's ham and Gruyere. It's a baked dish. Takes about 12 to 15 minutes. I went down on that so hard. Imagine coming from a 3-star to take over, hey, this is your new chef.
Right.
And just completely eats it on the first service.
Wow. Oh, that was
right?
That was
or
your
like
first,
the first service where she wasn't there.
Right.
Like the first brunch, right?
Right.
And it's fucking, I think it was Mother's Day. But regardless, it's just like, you never forget those times. Because those are the times where you're in your car like, I'm the chef, right? Like it was like, I'm the head chef of this place. It's like, if a cook was doing that, there'd be issues.
Right.
So how do you deal with yourself when you fuck up on the line in front of your team?
Is that rhetorical or you're asking?
I'm asking.
Oh, I'm overly honest and communicative, and I'm like maybe not the most corporate lipped person. Okay. So I do like, I get off on the fear, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to be open, the curtain's going up, and there's Sunday, for instance, 300 people are expecting a performance of shrimp and grits and, smoked ribs, whatever we're going to serve them, And like, I get amped as hell. Like, it is, I guess I just like the possibility of failing. Like, like if I have extra time, I'm putting extra things on my station. Like I am surrounded by a wall of mise en place. Like, I just love that. Like, I didn't become the shooting forward for the Knicks because of my physical attributes, right? But this is like the next best thing. It is. I love prepping. Like, so I read this thing early on from Gary Danko, and he said, like, you just gotta like chopping onions, right? And I was like, that sentence appeals to me, right? And then one of my Andre Soltner, who was the chef of Lutece for 30 years in New York, widely regarded as the best restaurant in New York until he closed it or shortly before that. Supposedly he missed like 3 services in 30 years or something. Like, to me, that's why I got into this business. I do not want to, I don't need anything else out of it. I need like the guests to be happy. I need to be constantly being able to play with food, right? And I need the physical aspect and the team aspect. All that stuff just appeals to me. Like, I never, so sorry to jump around, but I was actually talking to Chef Christopher Costa before, when I was at my place in St. Helena, and I had just gotten this job, the one I have now at the Bull Valley Roadhouse, and like I said, I was a private chef there. I was working 6 hours a day, comparable salary. They're great people. You know, they were really nice to me. I had really no complaints except that I wasn't ready to be put out to pasture.
Right.
And I said to...
that's what it feels like.
Kind of. Like, I'm just like... you know. So I said to him, and he said, you know, I just miss, like, cooking every night on the line with people and serving. And he's like, basically something to the extent of, I can't tell if you're being sarcastic, you know? And I was like, no, like, that's what how I want to spend my time. You know what I mean? That's how I like to spend my time. So I don't wish I was playing soccer or watching movies or, you know, on a talk show talking about the restaurant. I wish I want to be there doing the thing, you know, which is good because that's how my career panned out. I'm do this thing.
Right.
So it's good that I like doing the thing, you know, and I'll probably do it till they put me in the ground to some capacity, you know, or it might be the reason they put me in the ground, to be honest with you. But yeah, I really like everything about it. Yeah. It is harder the older you get.
Right.
You know, I'm 50, you know, plus, and, you know, I have people have the Apple Watch. I have the Oura Ring, which tells me how many steps and how many calories and all that stuff. You look at that shit, like, damn, like, that's
40,000 steps. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I walked 16 and a half miles, but yet I didn't move from this position.
Yeah.
You know, I've been walking in a circle. It seems kind of mad. But, you know, I just love it. I love restaurants. I
It's
think,
like sports teams.
yeah, like it's David Chang said once somewhere in a book or a podcast, something to the effect of he feeds off the blood of young cooks, you know. And while I wouldn't be so hyperbolic as that, I do love, like, the older I get, the cooks stay the same. Like, now they're like, I work with 20-year-olds and 25-year-old cooks, you know, and it's interesting to see that incubate with people and them be interested in every generation. You know, I've been getting to see that age group, that sort of that place in the profession where people are just entering, they're deciding whether it's for them or not for them, and then becoming more invested. And like taking over the Bull Valley Roadhouse, it was the island of misfit toys. Like, the place was just run in a very successful yet unorthodox fashion. And I'm unorthodox too, but I'm more orthodox than it was. And, you know, seeing the people that respond to that and say, oh, okay, cool, I'm down for buckling down or pushing harder. And the other ones were like, you know, nah, I'm just going to go work somewhere else, you know. Yeah, it's a bit of rambling, I feel. Where do we leave off?
No, it's all good. Do you feel like because you have such an intense approach to the kitchen over your years, there's been falling out with certain chefs or cooks or things like that?
Yeah.
Or misunderstandings?
I think I definitely... So, okay, this will be a good entry to that. So the first time I was a chef, we opened 2 restaurants within, like, on January 27th, 2005, we opened Sea Salt. That was my first restaurant. I was the chef. It was a 7-day-a-week lunch and dinner spot serving sustainable seafood. November 4th, 2005, which is 5-6 months later, we opened a 300-seat barbecue restaurant like a mile away that was lunch and dinner 7 days a week. And I worked the line at both places, you know, for 2 years. You know, like, I'd do lunch at one place, I'd drive to the other place, I'd be at the dinner, you know, expediter. Then we started doing late nights. I would stay till 1 a.m. Like, it was insane. And I had a great bunch of people. and some not super great people, but like on both, I had to have two teams. So I had extra sous chefs.
Mhm.
I had to really have these two teams be in sync with each other and share their chef, basically. But even though I was working all the time, like no exaggeration, all the time. And there were a couple of people who I may have acted. I mean, I don't know. Like there were times in my career, like everybody's career, where you're exhaustion, desperation, whatever you feel in that moment, like you just can't hold it in, and it comes out on somebody, And I was never terrible like that, but I've definitely
Lashed out a few times.
yeah, of course, man. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I beat myself up way worse,
Right.
Mm.
How do you deal with that after the fact?
I'm pretty much good with I think almost everybody I've
Right.
ever worked, for the most part, like people that bosses and people who've been my sous or whatever. But there were people, I can't even really think of super explicit examples, but I mean, one of the things doing this so long, I feel better at maintaining an even keel rather than allowing that sort of all those feelings to sort of overwhelm you, because line cooking is a difficult job. Being the chef is a difficult job. Doing both can feel at times, overwhelming. And then not being at both restaurants all the time can also feel not overwhelming, even though you're working all the time. So I made that sound really terrible. That was one of the greatest times of my life, by the way. I had great teams. Sea Salt was a great neighborhood restaurant. I probably kept 40% of my staff for the 5.5 years I was the chef there. We ended up getting 3 stars by Bauer when that still mattered. I cooked every piece of seafood I could possibly get my hands on, and it was so much fun. I exercised that thing in me. I scratched every itch of seafood, and I learned a lot, and it was so much fun, But like I was like single, I had a mattress, and
right.
Pretty much, really, for real. I didn't like do anything, anything.
You're speaking the same life a lot of us have lived.
Yeah. And I like that. I think part of when I got into restaurants, what I liked so much was that I wouldn't have to attend social functions and gatherings.
Right.
I wouldn't have to go to birthdays and weddings. I could just say I'm at work.
You have an excuse.
I have an excuse to not participate in society. And I've really definitely have fostered that whole feeling.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll back up a little. When I was working in the Castro for the Millennium, 2000 or whatever, and I met a girl, and we decided to go to Europe. So I went to Europe in 2000, and we did 50 cities in 11 countries, backpacking for 6 months.
Okay.
And then I came back, and we moved to Berkeley. And in Berkeley, well, first we moved back to Connecticut and Rhode Island, and I worked in the Inn at Mystic for Guilherme Briome, pronounced terribly. He was like a Robichon guy that kind of, to me, seemed like he was like an outcast because he moved to Tennessee, and he had this like group of young Tennessee flunkies following him around. And then he became the guy at the Inn at Mystic in Connecticut. And I just did banquets there, and we would do ice sculptures and individual croquembouche for the table, 150 egg yolk hollandaise, which we just used to ring the demi-glace, like the thin veneer of like good food, but it was not,
Right.
It was just all the fake French shit in that way, like because he put canola oil in his.
There's nothing
hollandaise.
worse than fine food done terribly.
Right. Yeah.
Shitty food done horribly. That shit passes me. Some nachos at the fucking, the game.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Hot dog with some ketchup.
Right. I'm not criticizing.
But some shitty ass demi.
Yeah. Oh, God. So it was just a job to get out of we realized we made a mistake by living there. And the other place was run by a one-legged young chef, 84 High Street in Rhode Island. And he did tons of catering. He would pay us cash in hand, time and a half for everything over everything over 8 hours. I made enough money to move back to San Francisco on our ill-fated New England trip. Let's put it that way. But it was good to drive around that area and see all the seafood shacks and experience that in a way I didn't get to as a kid growing up in New York. And then we came back to Berkeley. I got a job at a place, opening restaurant called Fonda. It was Latino small plates. And that was a super fun job. I got hired with my girlfriend at the time. We broke up a few months later. She left, and it was all people my age. We were super popular. We also got 3 stars from the Chronicle, and small plates. It was just so much fun. You know, like, we're not coursing dishes. We're just sending out small plates to people.
Right.
It was just like throwing small grubbing food of, you know, grilled lamb chops and prawns and all this, just like simple Mexican inspired or Latino inspired small plates. That was super fun. I was there for about 2.5 years as the sous chef, and I heard the company was going to open a new restaurant, a barbecue joint. And I was like, that doesn't interest me at all. I'm going to quit. So I quit and got a job as a butcher. Cafe Rouge used to be a place in Berkeley down on 4th Street. Marcia McBride was a big part of Zuni early back in the day, and then she opened their own spot, and she had a really good run. She's awesome. The place was awesome. But they were known for having a butcher shop inside, so I took that job. Charcuterie, butcher, serve the public, but also butcher for the restaurant. And when I was there, the owner of Fonda was opening the barbecue place, Hyde Krikorian, one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. Total mentor. He had Lalim's restaurant in Berkeley for 36 years. I can't say enough good things about him and his whole family. But he said, hey, you want to open the barbecue restaurant with me? And even though I had quit his previous restaurant because of that, I said, yeah, of course. You're asking me. Of course. I can't say no. Of course I want to. Now I'm all excited for some reason. And that's when we opened T-Rex, right after we opened Sea Salt. Not to be too confusing, as we were opening T-Rex, he said, hey, you know what? There's some delays. I found this other spot. Let's open a seafood restaurant here. And that's the one. That's why that opened first. So we opened Sea Salt in 2005 and T-Rex right after.
Okay.
And after about 2 years at the barbecue place, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't. So if you smoke meat over wood, I can communicate that to you. You can communicate that to me. We can understand that. We bought these like electric smokers. Not electric. They burned wood.
Right.
But they were a control panel.
Right.
And they're meant for like doing roomfuls of bacon for Costco or, Smithfield hams.
Smithfield ham, yeah.
Really, that kind of thing. So it took us a year before we figured them out. The company that sold them to us, their company policy was not to teach us how to use them, because if we lost any product following their direction, they are theoretically liable to be sued. So we had to really figure them out. We would beg the guys, just tell me, give me an example and I'll take it from there on what the coordinates should be. So I can't do that. So that was rough. And that was a rough go. Right there on Gilman Street, which is a very populated area now. There's a Phil's Coffee, a burger place, a Whole Foods. Then it was a desert. Anyway, so I lasted about 2 years doing the chef of both places, and then I was literally just going to die. And the owner, Haig, said, let's go to Italy and France. And I said, great. And he took me to both places, and he said, pick one of the restaurants you want to be the chef of. I don't want to kill you. Be the chef of one of those restaurants, and the other one you don't have to be the chef of. I was like, great. I chose the seafood restaurant. And I did that for about 4 more years. And that was, like I said, great. I was in early 30s. The place had a very loyal clientele. They were willing to try anything we would bring in. Man, it was a super fun job.
Dope.
Yeah. That was probably like the salad days. I was young enough to like run through a wall in the day, run through the wall at night, come back on a few hours sleep and keep doing it.
Heard that.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're opening restaurants. You're pretty much upper management.
Yeah. So I guess I've been a chef since 2005, since we've opened those 2 restaurants. After that, I quit. I took a little time off to like
decompress.
Just decompress. And my friend was a chef of a catering place, Betty's Latchin Catering, big catering place in San Francisco. And I just took jobs with her for a while. I consulted at a long-standing like lunch place in Laurel Heights, and then I had to get back. I wanted to get back into it, and I just saw this ad on Craigslist of all things of a guy who had a place in the Mission, a seafood restaurant, and I was like, okay, I can do that. I've done that. I can do that. and I went and did a tasting for him. Sometimes my senses are off, and I should have seen some red flags with this guy. So he hired me. It was a great tasting, hired me. And then like my first or second or third day, I saw like the signs of like there being like, oh, I think he's sleeping with the bartender after his wife leaves. Or,
Yeah.
I'm not sure she's even 21, the bartender. Oh, wait. And then like, I think he just hangs out in here, does blow with his friends all night.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like all the red flags. So within 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, I was out of there. I said, listen, just seems like too. No, this isn't a serious operation.
Right.
You're just not. I'm sorry to waste your time, but I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend at the time was opening a wine bar on like 20th and Mission called 20 Spot. Still there, great spot. And he's like, oh, be the chef for me. Great. It was me in the kitchen alone with one of those turbo chefs.
Yeah.
A hoodless kitchen, an induction burner, and it was fine. I liked cooking. I was cooking to a degree. And then I was doing 6 nights a week there, the only employee. I had a dishwasher. And my wife was working, I think she was working at Gather in Berkeley. She quit. I said, come on, just come, let's do this together for a little while. It'll be fun. Great. So we're doing it for a little while, and then, we could see that we had reached our ceiling there. We were putting out nice food. It was fine, but it's a small wine bar, and the owner is kind of one of my good friends, but not a restaurateur. He's a flighty dude who owns a wine bar, and I love him to death. And so I contacted my headhunter, and we got a call. She sent us to a place in Sonoma County in Kenwood called the Kenwood Restaurant. And this guy who had made 10 lifetimes worth of money in tech was going to reimagine this place. Beautiful, right across from Cundy Winery on Highway 12. And we go up there, and he wants to do, very responsibly sourced food, whole animals, yada, yada. That's my bag. I'm really into, it's important to me to buy good product. And that's been something that's important to me for a long time. And we were speaking the same language, right? So we get hired, we move up to Sonoma, and he says, take these few weeks, drive to every farm you could find, talk to people, make connections, get your food on. And that was great. It was amazing. I made contacts I still use today. And the idea was I bought 1 cow a month, 1 whole cow a month. And then we would use the whole cow and buy another cow. We had to sell every piece and butcher it down and make money on it, So Stemple Creek in Marin County, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished. Wonderful, wonderful people. They're at in my opinion, the forefront of cattle farming. Great people, 3rd generation, all this stuff. So we met him in some coffee shop, and he said, I'll take you to the farm, but I only sell you whole animals. I'm not selling you any pieces. I was like, great, that's exactly what we want, please. So we went there, and we met. It was idyllic, rolling hills. He, just amazing. He says he's a carbon positive operation, right? So you talk about global warming, you talk about the fate of our ecosystems and the soil and the health of the animals, and I can go on and on about how grass-fed beef is a healthier and better product to eat. It's a very challenging thing to make money on, to bring in, because everybody's buying cheaper beef, I feel, at least by their menu prices, but I feel strongly that so the word restaurateur it's not restaurant tour, it's restaurateur, to restore in French, right? So it's sort of an obligation that you're going to get healthy food. It's inherent that we're going to cook something decadent for you. You're going to eat something you didn't eat at home, be it a steak with butter on it or some piece of offal or something. But the trust factor that I'm going to make sure that it's the healthiest possible version of that is something that is a pretty big driving force in everything I put on the menu. So that's very important. So Kenwood got to scratch that itch immensely. We made our own butter, our own sour cream. That's where Sam started fermenting. Made our own hot dogs. Made everything we could possibly do. We would sell the pig, whole pigs, everything was whole animals. So we would sell the pig's head, and they would sell. We would cut a pig's head in half, and it would be listed on the menu for 4, and then 2 people come in and get a pig's head. It was pretty. gratifying to know that in a kind of a food-starved area, they really wanted chicken Caesar salads at the Kenwood, but we were giving them this. And it ultimately didn't work out there, but it definitely bolstered my opinion that people everywhere and in all walks of life are going to eat awful and weird cuts. Like the beef liver would sell out, and that kind of makes sense. People like older people love that shit. We'd sell out the kidneys, we'd sell out every part, and I was like, this makes me happy. Half the people wanted chicken Caesar salads, yes, but of the other half of the people that accepted us for what we were, even in what some people might think is Podunk, Sonoma County, or at least that area, which is sparsely populated. It was, sorry, did I do it again?
No worries. We're just going to.
It was great, very gratifying to, every month, I got to sell this fucking cow, man. And I got to make, $4,800 off of it somehow, or $6,000, whatever it was. And coming to the wire every month, we did it. We did it. We had 4 shanks and a tail and a liver, and we sold, we would do the heart raw, and we would sell out, and it was very gratifying.
That's dope. Yeah. How long did you end up doing that?
So we did it for 1.5 years, and then so Sam will tell it differently, but she was clearly on her way out of restaurants, and he was a guy who people didn't say no to. And she was just like, she treated him like a waiter rather than the owner, At times he would be in the kitchen, he'd be, his dog might be there, he'd be with a beer. And she was just like,
it's your fucking dog.
Right. She could not hide her disdain at all.
Right.
And then eventually that all came to a head. And then I made the mistake of contacting my headhunter and being like, is there anything else out there? And because she found us that job, she was kind of obligated to tell him that. Oh. And I'm still in good with that headhunter. I'm the one who made the error, not her. And he said, listen, find yourself another job, and when you do, you can go. And I was like, great, whatever. Right. And I got a job at Laleem's, which was a Berkeley institution from the early 80s. My mentor, Hyde Krikorian, who opened Fonda, and then I quit. And then he opened Sea Salt and T-Rex with him. He took me to Europe, and he had some health problems, and the restaurant was not in a great place. And he said, oh, man, I'd love to have you back. I was like, I'd love to have this challenge, It was a institution, great restaurant, like so many good things. I can't say enough about it. And I was like thrilled to work there. I always wanted to work there. And so I kind of had a back and forth with Michael Bauer, like in a good way. Whenever we review a restaurant, I'd say, thanks for coming in. I'm not a networker. I'm terrible at that shit. Like I am the worst networker ever. But I wanted to keep always in good graces with him. So I told him when I was going to Laleem's, I'm going to Laleem's, but I told him too soon probably. And he came in like week 2. And when I came there, the cooks were terrible. Like they were just people who never should have been working in kitchens. And the first couple of weeks were brutal, and he came in with one of those days and was like, I like the chef. I have faith in the chef, but like right now it's a little rough, basically. Right. And that's like, okay, that's the last review we're going to get here. Fuck, man. We did right the ship, and that was also one of the most fun times I ever had because we got to a place. I would call us a little restaurant that could. We opened 6 days a week. I convinced someone who worked at the Kenwood with me to drive from Petaluma every day to be my sous chef. And we really, really were the little restaurant that could. It became, I'm the kind of guy that throws more things on the menu than should happen. There's always like a pig ear or a duck neck or a duck gizzard or duck hearts or a couple of those things. Not everybody's going to get them, but what's the harm of throwing 5 things on the menu that only 10% of the people are going to identify with? It broadens our appeal. I have all the other shit. You don't have to look at those things if you don't want to. But if you happen to want to try something, or you want to if you are a person who likes that kind of shit, I got it for you. So I really exercised that in spades at Aleem's, and it was a very, very, very fun time. So just backing up as far as like networking goes, this is how bad I am at networking. I saw Jen Beastie's name on the book. She's chef, was at Shakewell. Before that, she was at Scala. She's on TV. Like, she's a famous, legitimate chef. So I was like, we got to make sure that she's coming here. It's great. Let's make sure she knows that we recognize her. And that we do something nice for her as someone in the business, right? So at the end of the meal, she comes in the kitchen. She's like, hey. I was like, hey, Anthony. And she's like, yeah, Jen. I was like, thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate you coming in. It's so nice to meet you. She's like, we met before. And I was like, my foot right in my mouth. I was like, oh, God, I'm so terrible. And she's like, you should come to my restaurant sometime. I'm in Oakland. And I was like, yeah, I work 6 days a week. I'm sure, I don't know what I was trying to say. But I basically said, I'm never coming to your restaurant in the most rude way possible. And I was just trying to say, I work all the time and I'm overwhelmed. And I usually just sleep on Mondays to try to, But I said it in a way that basically said, I don't know. I felt, by the time she left, I was like, what did I just do? I just insulted that woman. You know what I mean? And that sums up my networking. And
Oh, when you spend all the time cooking.
Yeah.
And not talking to people.
Right.
Except for your cooks.
Right.
You lose all sense of cordialness. You don't, there's no filler words in kitchen talk.
Right.
There's just chicken pan there, 5 minutes. It's like, okay. Fuck.
Yeah.
So you guys leave there, and where did you go after that?
So I went to Lalim's. She started doing the pickle thing full time. She picked up some shifts at the Girl and the Fig. She did some private chefing. There were years where she didn't pay herself at all, So we were like, that was a struggle, but it was fine. It was like we both believe in her and her business, and I'm super supportive of her. She's my wife. I love her to death. I think she's badass in everything she does. So if she's going to try something, she's probably going to succeed. And then being at Leams for years, 6 days a week, an hour from home, 12-hour days. On Sunday it was like the brunch and dinner all day. I was just taking a beating, And then my sous chef was pregnant. She was going to leave. And I didn't know if we could find anybody. We couldn't find anybody. And I wasn't making a ton of money, and Sam wasn't making any. So I called my headhunter again, and she hooked me up with a place in St. Helena, Archetype. And I went to, he's like a world famous architect, and his wife is very worldly. And so I took the job there. It felt terrible to leave one of my favorite people on earth. And I'd been with them 3 different stints, but it was time. And so in the kitchen, I don't refer to myself as chef, and I ask people not to refer to me as chef because I am the chef. I know I'm the chef. I don't know. There's something about that always rubbed me the wrong way. It reminded me of that Seinfeld episode where the conductor made everybody call him Maestro, even though he was just like the conductor of the police orchestra. Some shit. It wasn't even like the Philharmonic. Yeah. So I like that sort of I don't know, low key or humbleness or that's what always being a chef meant to me. People know I'm the chef because I'm the loudest guy. You can see it. You could see in this brief time you know me, I don't shut up. You know what I mean? I'm kind of opinionated, so people know. But Archetype, everybody was just I think if I walked into anybody who worked there on the street, they'd think my name was Chef, And that was always kind of I don't know, a little bit of a bummer for me. And I know that's an unpopular opinion in the restaurant world and among chefs. But yeah, that's how I feel about that.
So good chef, be real.
Yeah.
Sucio talk, baby. That's what it is.
So I worked in St. Helena, and that was, it was what it was. It was fun. It was a challenge. It was the first place ever. Every place I was before, I just got almost total carte blanche to cook whatever I want. Working with Haig, he just basically said, whatever you want, man. Whatever you want. There's a seafood restaurant and a barbecue place. If he saw something he'd like, he'd say, did you ever think about doing this? And we'd talk it out. And if I said no, he was cool with that. But, if not, I was like, that's a good idea. I want to do something like that. And that's the way it went. But at Archetype, it was pretty much, this is the restaurant I want. And you're going to give that to me. And I was like, that's fine. That's fine. So it wasn't my dream job, but each place is a different experience. And I've learned about people. I learned about cuisine. I learned about different restaurants, different parts of California. So while it's probably not one of my top 3 favorite jobs, I had a lot of fun there. I met people that when I first walked in there, I was the enemy, and the cooks were trying to sabotage me, and they were hiding beers in the bathroom. And when we closed for the pandemic, we were all crying and hugging. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what I take a lot of value in, like that. You know, the fact that I turned these people around and they became soldiers for me, and you know we did our little, you know, stupid game of pretending that it's all more important than it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then they followed me on that, and so that was awesome. That Saint Helena is very vegan friendly and gluten free friendly and all that stuff, and that helped me expand my repertoire with that, which is and my understanding and just that it's a very important part of today's cooking, and a lot of chefs are very flippant or combative with that notion. So you know, special orders don't upset me. You know, it's not Burger King, but you, to an extent, can have it your way.
Right.
You know, I'm here. Hospitality is the thing for me. You know, I feel like that during the pandemic and post-pandemic, a lot of people bag on restaurants, and I think it's a great job, a great way to earn a living. It's a great industry. So many great things about it. The people, the things you get to learn, the positive affirmation you get when people enjoy your work because they experience it in real time. You're not making a widget and mailing it off on Amazon.
Right.
You know, people leave there either happy or not. It's a wonderful thing. And, you know, the higher end a restaurant is, the more flack it gets. But nobody's forced to work at Noma. You know what I mean? Those are people that want to do that. And terrible example because I don't know much about him, but I'm sure Kanye West worked more than 8 hours a day when he wanted to become a famous person, or Lady Gaga. You know, and you don't have to work at those places. There are perfectly reasonable other types of restaurants to work in. Everybody I work with gets paid well. They work no more than 8 hours, you know. I don't kill my sous chef with hours. I work more than everybody there. So, like, I feel a little defensive about the industry and the idea of hospitality, the idea that it's a noble thing to dedicate your life to. There's a saying in Italian, no one grows old at the table, right? So if you can stop time like that for people in a small way, like, I don't think, like I said, I don't think chefs are superheroes or doctors, whatever. Like, but like that's a cool thing to be involved with, is just to like make people happy in that way for a minute. Right. So, like, it seems as though, and this is like, you can okay boomer me, but I'm not a boomer, but you can okay boomer me on this one. Like, I don't want to go from working at 2 restaurants, going on Top Chef, and then going on like trying to make a life on whatever, like on Travel Channel or something like that, you know? But there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just like, for me, I don't know any other way but to bang it out in the restaurant. Right. And nothing else seems as compelling to me.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. But like, I could be less like, oh, why don't they want to be in the restaurant? You know, we're losing people in droves. Like, get this people back in the restaurants. But I understand, like, food and drink and hospitality, it's bigger than restaurants. So, you know, I get that. I get that. But, yeah, I am very lizard brained or old school like that. I'm in the restaurant, you know?
You want to be on the line.
Yeah.
We need you, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
who the fuck are they going to make the travel show about? Like, if they don't have the chefs to visit. Like,
I think of Iggy Pop. He's like rich, right? And he could just like, chill. But he's still running around with his shirt off like a shrinkled, right? You know, he can't help it. You know, he can't help it. He doesn't know any other way to be. And I guess that in some less talented way than Iggy Pop, I'm that.
Right. Dude, I always say people talk shit about the musicians that go to Vegas. But I'm like, they get to do what they love 5 nights a week in the same place. They don't got to fucking go on tour. They can see their family. Go ahead, bro.
What did Celine Dion make, like $2 million a week or something in her
Probably.
residency? Something like that?
God bless her.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like being the personal chef of the entertainment industry. Just go to Vegas to die.
So 2 times I did a gig on... So David Copperfield has an island in the Bahamas where you can rent it out. So
you went to David Copperfield?
Yeah, twice. So
did you meet him?
Yeah. So he's not usually there, but we met him because we stayed. So the first 2 times, people rent it out. I think it's like an exorbitant amount, of course, right? And there's no commerce on the island. It's just a resort for these people. So you cook for them. They check out the place. They go to neighboring islands or whatever, and so we did that. We met him, and the people. One was a prince, like a young kid, whatever. They were very wealthy, very elite people. It was terrible. You know what I mean? As far as like being a private chef to the stars or whatever,
Right.
which is not what we were, but we got a small glimpse of that, right? Because, Dr. Dre was here, and all he ate was pancakes. I was like, I would have been that fucking person where I flew all the way to Florida, to Musha Cay, the island, and I just made pancakes for this motherfucker. Like, why would I do that? You know what I mean? Like, how much could it possibly be that would be worth it?
Right.
You know? But the last day, you get to stay there. You're onto the island.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fantastic.
I think when you have that much money early, you kind of either stay with the habits that you have, like eating pancakes all fucking day,
Right.
or you use your money to learn and like expand yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I know, for example, Rihanna, every time she goes to the French Laundry, they like roast her a whole chicken. I don't even think she enjoys the menu. She just eats the roasted chicken. So why go to the French Laundry?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe everyone else around her is enjoying the tasting.
Yeah.
But sometimes I look at them and I'm like, and that's what I didn't like about 3 stars, because you have the people that come there just because they have money, not necessarily because they want to have the experience. So to them, it's like, whatever.
Right.
But then you got the other half of it where people save up all year to go to Napa, to wine taste, to eat here, to eat there. And like, those are the fucking people I do it for.
Right.
You know, not the people that are just like, whatever. I mean, I remember a few kids would come in on like a first date, like 16 years old, decked out and like styled out. Yeah, Meadowwood.
Really?
With like, 2 15-year-old kids from high school, just like going to Meadowwood on their first date.
At least they saved on the wine pairing, I guess.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, God damn, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
You know?
We had 2 great meals at Meadowwood. 2 really great meals.
Awesome.
We went probably in 2012. No, 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam was working at Prospect at the time, and they killed us. Like, they were really trying to get word back to the Boulevard Prospect Kitchen that the Meadowwood was the place to be. And
That's
us,
right.
You know, and it was great. It was great. It was such a great time. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Food is so cool, and our industry is so cool, because if you were to tell that, say, to your childhood friends, like, I went to this restaurant, I spent this much money on the meal, they'd be like, what are you, fucking crazy, Anthony?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like hospitality sticks together, because even if your family doesn't understand you, these people do, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
You find your people.
Yeah.
You know?
I've definitely found my people.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So do you, you're at Bull Valley,
Yep.
right? Restaurant now. How long you been there?
I guess August will be 2 years, so a year and a half, year and 3/4.
Okay.
Yeah, my friend took it over. He was the bar manager there for like 7 or 8 years. When it was like a restaurant, not restaurant for years. And this group of people took it over, and my buddy was the bar manager at the time, about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. And they enjoyed quite a good run as a group. And then in the middle of the pandemic, the chef and the 2 owners wanted out, and Tamir took over the restaurant. And we had worked together at Fonda, at T-Rex, at Sea Salt. I've known him for years. We've been playing our Monday night poker game for years. He immediately drove up to Sonoma and said, "Do you want in?" I said, 100%, 100%. So I had to give the difficult news to my employer as a private chef, because we were planning a cafe up there and all this stuff. And I said, "Sorry, thank you for everything." It was difficult to leave them, as nice as they are, but this was a job that I knew that was built for me. So Bull Valley is like a 100-year-old building. It used to be a brothel, they say. It's just it's every corner is either taxidermy or a photo from the 1940s or a newspaper or a knick-knack. It's drips with charm. There's like 4 distinct rooms. So it's visibly and experientially just a very fun and interesting place. His bar menu is one of the smartest and most well executed bars in the North Bay or maybe anywhere. No expense, well, not expense, but no effort spared. And Tamir's just a really smart guy, and he's got his bar team to buy in. So that's very attractive. We have the location, we have the bar. That's a very big help for the chef. So I came in, and we slowly opened because it was still the end of COVID. We kept some people, we lost some people, and it was a slow go because then that's December. We closed again for COVID. So it wasn't really till last year around this time we started opening 5 days a week, doing brunch on Sundays, that we really can consider the restaurant really reopen. About a year now. And it's a super fun place. The guests are very game, when you take over a place and they have a couple of dishes they've been cooking for 1 million years, you're invariably going to get people to say, this wasn't what I had 5 years ago. What do you say to that? Things change. I'm sorry, but this is the way it is now. And it's been so much fun. I just love doing it. And I still just love ordering food, putting it away, wondering what I'm going to do with it, messing around with it. Like, it's just all so fun. I change things as often as possible. I try and put as much stuff on my station so I get buried. Living off that fear of failure, chasing some sort of physical high of movement. And, I can't dance. I can't play, sports anymore. So, like, this is very physically gratifying. And it's always getting busier. It's always getting busier. There's going to be a time where I'm going to have to, the evolution is I teach the whole team and bring everybody up and can afford to hire enough people where I'm the expediter on the other side, right? But it's a slow go to get there, and when I get there, I'll be relieved physically, but I'll definitely miss being in the shits.
Do you feel like this is your last resting place?
I've said that so many times, though. I don't know anymore. I have no idea. So the fate of the restaurant business is very precarious. You got places closing all the time. Paul Canales, Duende, before that in Oakland.
Yeah.
Okay, so they just closed. It's Asatania. He's a very talented, very smart, very accomplished man. 9 months in Oakland, and then Baker and Banker. They closed their place. They were in on that Maybach's place, and that place lasted 8 months or something. The mid-price restaurant is in danger. Like, people always pay to go to expensive places, nice places, 3 stars. There'll always be money for that, and there'll always be interest for that. The state of fast casual is so good. You can get really good fast casual food of most ethnicities. Think of that place, Suvla. The average Joe or Jane wants to get a roast chicken or some lamb. Like, it's good food, right? So is there a need for a $75 a person dinner? You know what I mean? Take tax and tip, whatever the check average is, right? That's a harder space to live in because you're not one thing and you're not the other. And you'll see these places begin to, like we were talking before, that it was like when I moved to San Francisco, it was a really great time, which it was. Like, the restaurant scene was so verdant and so things opening up and chefs, and I was just so psyched to be checking things out and read the food section. That's less true now. We went to Angler. We loved it. I love that guy's food. I'm out on that. We had a great meal there. But I don't think things that aren't either sushi or ethnic, I don't know what I'm excited about right now.
Right.
That's not like a higher end place, someplace sort of mid-level. So we do have the location and the bar, which I think I'm extending my time in this type of restaurant a little longer.
Right.
The mid-priced restaurant, if $75 a person is mid-priced, I think it is. So I don't know if I hope it's my final resting place. That would be nice. That means we're successful and it doesn't become stale to me.
Right.
And I could still scratch the itches I can scratch. I'm the one, for some reason, I know the reason, pushing 7-day a week now. We're 5 days. And I think that we can really succeed on 7 days. And we'll need to. And what do we do on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and all that stuff? You're diluting your prime costs, but you're also opening on days that aren't really necessarily profitable. But if we can turn them into Like, it's a great industry location.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his spirit list is like through the roof. You know, you can come there 5 times and not taste all the fernettes, you know, and same thing with whiskeys and gins and everything, and the drinks they make there. It used to be a good spot for the industry. So some sort of like unofficial, because industry nights are so dumb and gimmicky, it's like happy hour.
Mm-hmm.
But something that if we let people know we're pouring from this bottle on Mondays, you know, when you come up in the lodge and, you know, there's an outside area, it's just a fun place to be. So I think we can keep pushing. If you ever want to come by and do the podcast on a Monday, we can combine forces for industry people.
I'm down. Let's do it. Chef's Roundtable. Been trying. My booth isn't big enough.
We got a couple of big booths over there. So yeah, I don't know like what the future holds. Maybe Sam will become a pickle magnate, and I could be the husband of a pickle magnate. And
dude,
I could run her production facility.
Hell yeah, baby.
But,
she's pickle cookbooks all day long.
Yeah, you think?
All day long.
Okay, not a bad idea. There's very few really good books on fermentation out there. There's a handful, but
yeah, I mean, if she doesn't do it, Noma's gonna keep writing the books.
Right.
Okay.
But that's for a certain level of like, that's not for Joe and Jane public.
Exactly.
You know, that's for like you and I that geek out over. But like, there's not. My neighbors aren't making piso.
No. Should they be though, Chef?
I don't know.
Maybe
We just put up a batch
should.
this week. It's fucking great.
Yeah. There you go. So how do you get cooks over there? You have young cooks?
So it's rough.
You're telling me you do.
Yeah. We have some cooks, but like, I have a great group of people. But a couple of them clearly have other, like they're going to school and they're going to leave me. Or like a couple of young guys, like they have other things lined up. They're, you know, I'd say at least half my team is not long-term restaurant people.
Right.
You know, I love them. They're good people. They give effort. But, it would be nice to, but nobody's around. So we need another person. Guy comes to me on a Saturday, brings his resume. He works, I don't want to blow up his spot, but he works at a restaurant, a bar in San Francisco, one you've been to. And he's like, I don't want to work there anymore. I want to work at a place where people are serious.
Right.
I want to work here only. I live in the area. So I got to get everybody in the area who's serious, right? Okay, great. You're going to be hired no matter what. I never lose anything. Suspiciously, that resume leaves my kitchen somehow. I don't know if there are a few people that want to come back to work there who used to work there. And I think there are some people that are fans of that idea who work there. But I'm trying to limit the amount of people with the old culture that come back, because I don't want to be subsumed by that old culture. You know, I'm trying to build the culture I want there. So anyway, not that I'm accusing anybody of tossing that resume, but it was gone. And I was very, fuck. So now I have to go out to that bar.
Right.
And I have to corner this guy and say,
you got to poach him.
Don't come back in. I told him I was going to email him, but it's not a place that, it's a totally different type of place. It's not like serious food or anything.
Right.
But I don't even know if he can cook, but like he wants to work there, and that's like the first step. I write for the players. So if he shows me who he is, I'll write his station for him within what I want to do.
Right.
That's sort of maybe where I give some ground. I know that people aren't coming to me for their resume, and I'm not, I can't make it 100% my way or the highway. Okay, you can't do this one or two dish, I'll just put it on my station. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. You can't do a raw fish, a beef tartare, 3 salads, 5 desserts, 2 or 3 other things. I'll take one of the things that we do, and I'll do it on my saute station. Okay, fine. That's where I cede some ground. Like, I'm not going to be like, dude, you got to do it. And sometimes I don't know people's limits. Like, if I just keep trying to overload myself, sometimes I might do that with other people. So I have to be cognizant of that. It's a long way to say that it isn't like San Francisco or Oakland where people are dying to get jobs at places. Although I think that's even like not happening now. A friend of ours used to be the pastry chef at Delfina. Now she teaches, but she helps out, and they have trouble finding people at Delfina. I'm thinking, if Delfina can't find cooks, like, that's, and then not that they're, I mean, I know the Italian thing has evolved past Delfina, but they were a bulletproof institution for years and years and years and
Right.
years. So everybody's having trouble finding people. People are living the industry in droves, and then people are entering the industry post-pandemic who don't belong in the industry at all. We had one guy that came on board that was the case, and it was clear that, oh, okay, you watch YouTube videos, and now you're here.
Right.
Right? And you used to work for the government or something, and,
Mm-hmm.
it was a big learning experience for him, and he's no longer with us.
He's no longer.
I mean, he's alive.
Yeah.
But
We used to say that to everyone. He got fired or whatever. They left. They're no longer with
he's
us.
no longer with us.
Yeah.
He's not dead, but he may be dead to me.
Yeah. Jesus. Love it.
No, not so much. No, it was just the wrong fit.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time. Yeah. My expectations on assembling a kitchen, my expectations on what people do there, my expectations of the guests have all been growing, in being a chef of kitchens for almost 20 years. I am very sensitive not to overload anybody or try and give things to people that make them mad at me rather than learning or growing or doing their job.
Right.
Whereas I used to just be like, come on, more. Let's do that. Let's do this. Let's go. And a lot of people respond to that, and a lot of people don't. So you have to sort of personalize how you
How you lead.
Yeah.
Right. Dope. That's good. That's actually what I was going to ask. How do you hire her?
So it used to be Craigslist. It has been like that for years. In Archetype, there was a great network of mostly Mexicans up there that all worked 2 jobs.
Right.
They would work at Solage or Evangeline or Goose and
Press,
Gander.
Meadowwood,
Right.
Charter Oak.
Right, or first and second time. Oh, I've worked here before.
Yeah.
This is my second stint at Goose and Gander too. So if someone was done or we got rid of somebody, somebody would bring me somebody in, and that was awesome. I didn't have to advertise there. It's been tough. It used to be now it's Indeed, right, or something, but you never really I never get anybody good online. It's always word of mouth. Always word of mouth. Like this guy that came in, he's going to come in. He wants to work there. He's going to give it his best shot, clearly, because he was a chef of a bar. And, my thinking is, he probably works a grill okay. If I can, clean him up on the grill a little bit, I got a guy. He's got the motivation already. So it really is just trying to find, diamonds in the rough. But especially where we are, we're limited. We're limited. Like I said, I have a great team. It's a super, both front and house, great team to work with. But yeah, every time I'm going to lose somebody. Like I have somebody working for me now. He's 65. So he was a chef I knew for years and years and years, and accomplished. He's had a career that he had nothing to make any excuses for, apologize for. He did great, but he's kind of retired and he lives close by, and I know him. So he's like, "Can I pick up 3 or 4 days a week as prep, a one-line shift or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, great." But he's going to leave someday, right? He's not doing this forever, and so I do have a constant stress about when Alex graduates, he's going to go into his other profession in a year and a half or a year, whatever. All that's looming, and how we'll replace those people. It's like one of the biggest stressors, people get paid a lot more nowadays, which is great, but there are less people in the kitchen because of it, right? And I'm not complaining. The chef salary hasn't gone up. I'm making the same.
No.
Pretty static for 10 years as a chef,
Right.
The past 10 years, which is fine. I'm not crying. I don't have any kids and expensive hobbies or anything. But it is, I would like to see more people, broken record, in it for the hospitality reason, in it for because they have like me, I have a mental problem where I want to run fast and put more stuff on my station, or you know what I mean? Or like you were talking about before, just like I want to clean that thing a little extra just because whatever, trying to teach myself or discipline myself. But I don't know if my zeal and my insanity about my job is even a healthy thing. So I have that push and pull, where I'm saying, why aren't you like, why do you want to do other stuff? And then I say to myself, oh, because people are multifaceted and they want to do other things and they have other interests and all that's healthy. And just because like you don't want to do that stuff, you just want to wake up and think about the prep and come in and order something extra and then struggle to get the time to put on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
That's your thing. You know, you can't expect that. So how do we find success in a place where we accept that we want other people's lives more balanced than I've crafted for myself, you know? But that's my thing, not, I can't put that on other people. And it's true, people are more, some people are more productive the less they work.
Right.
You know? And maybe I would be too. Who knows? For like, I get a lot of stuff done, so it's hard to think. But like maybe I would too if I had like more regular rest. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think we work in one of those industries where you kind of see what you've made. It's in front of you. Like if you've done 4 hours of work, you look at this walk-in shelf, and it's half full or full, however hard you prepped. And like as a teacher, like when you're teaching kids in school, like I guess there's some because they can take tests or whatever, but like you don't really know. You know what I mean? Like if you're progressing or if you're working at all. That's what I feel like people that do desk jobs or something like that. Like, how do you feel like you've achieved something?
Isn't that what kills them? Like, I've never seen The Office, but I saw that movie Office Space. I'm not experienced with any of this stuff, but isn't that what like eats them alive? That it's just like the widget factory making, you know, pushing pencils around.
Yeah, I worked on a ranch and I realized that mechanics and ranch workers, people that work on a farm, they're dealing with problems all day long. Right. You wake up, the feed didn't come in. The grain is this. It rained too much yesterday. Now we're flooded. Right. This is broken, you know? And when I was out there in Wyoming, I really realized that there's a lot of people that work jobs where it is just bad news all fucking day long. Yeah. And as hard as it is to be a chef, I feel like it's 50-50, you know, like for every dishwasher that calls out, there's like a happy guest. Yeah. So it's like a balancing act every single day. And there's really nothing else that I can think of that equalizes you as much as this job, because you have to be so many things at once and you're constantly under scrutiny of others and yourself. So how you talk, the dish you made, how you did, you know, Tuesday versus Wednesday, how you treated this cook this week versus last week. And there's just so many ebbs and flows. And then all the cooks are going through all their shit, like in their own personal lives. And then they all come to this restaurant where it's like people come to you to have a good time. Like nobody goes out to a restaurant like, I'm going to have a shit time. I'm going to go out. It's going to be great. Right. No, they go out to you with like high expectations of like, especially your type of restaurant where it's like people go there often. There is regulars. There's like, that's even harder to uphold than a French Laundry. When like, you know. That's my favorite part of it. Like I all the places I've worked have been neighborhoody. Like that we have regular guests often. And I know the French Laundry has regular guests too. A lot of places I've worked at open kitchens. So I've been able to connect with people in that way. And that's so gratifying. It's so gratifying. You're saying about as far as like day to day, you know, that's one of the things that always like keeps me going is that like no matter how good today was, tomorrow can humble me pretty hard. And no matter how much I got humbled today, there's always tomorrow to get back on the horse, you know, and we could try it again. Yeah. You know? So that's very gratifying. But yeah, people, you know, and people are ruthless, man. Yeah. People don't give a fuck. You know, so I never lived like in the caring about like ratings. I'm not a Michelin guy, you know, but like I obsess over OpenTable, Yelp, and Google reviews. Those are people that come in. Those are actual people that come in that experience things with us and are moved to say something. Right. And overwhelmingly we get positive, you know, feedback. Like you get one thing and you're just like obsessing over it. I remember thinking like, I was just like going nuts about it. I said, let me just look at this thing again. I was like, oh, we have 25 5-star reviews in a row. And then this one guy gave us like 3 or 4 and said something like,
the peas were undercooked or something. And I'm like tossing and turning the peas, motherfucker. Like that's not a healthy relationship with that.
Right.
Like, that's how I sort of connect to feedback, is like the guest feedback. When we like I said, when we first opened the Leams, he came in, it was terrible. We got a terrible review. And I was like, all right, like that sucks. He was nice about it, but it sucked. It was a terrible night. And then we found out a couple of days later he came in that night, like God, just kill me, right? But then within months, like in the feedback from guests and online and the chat, whatever, people were like, this is probably the best restaurant in Berkeley right now. And it's like, okay, we didn't get to have that in the Chronicle, but like there's a discussion about it with people who come here regularly. I've been coming here before I was the chef, when someone else was the chef, who eat out in Berkeley all the time. Great, okay. And that, of course, translates into being busy, which is great. The review would have been a bump. That's a superficial bump. It's really everybody that comes in has to leave happy. And it's like that old shampoo commercial. And then she told a friend, and she told a friend. And the screen keeps splitting into more people. And word of mouth is the only way, in my opinion, at this type of restaurant. To get people to come in and leave like, damn, that was worth coming down this hill under the bridge in a place most people even in California have no idea where it is,
Yeah.
And it's like 20 minutes from here, a half hour from here. Not even. Yeah, I don't even know where that came from, that particular ramble.
It's all good, chef. Your soul, your heart. How do you guys promote to get people in the restaurant? Are you guys on social?
Mostly social. This is one of the few places I've worked that does really good swag. Like their T-shirts and stickers and sweaters are like worth buying on their own, which I've always respected, because like a restaurant will do it and they'll just put the name or some shitty graphic their son did or something. That's really cool. The work was already done, because in its previous incarnation, it alerted to people there was a restaurant there, and that people liked it. And once you come down there's a bar across the street that's like a really interesting bar with like taxidermied bears and 100 different beers, and bands play on Sunday, and there'll be 100 bikers outside, and it's just them and us and a thrift store and a T-shirt place in the whole town, right? And when you come down there, you're like, this is pretty magical. So we had popped up there, Sam and I. They used to do this thing called Dram Shop on Wednesdays. They were closed. They would invite other chefs in, and because my buddy was the bar manager, Sam and I went down there, and to promote Pickle Works, cooked up a whole menu of pickle stuff that could use her product. We visited, like, this place is awesome. Like, this place is so cool. Big patch of nettles growing out back, and all this just stuff was cool about it. So that's why I jumped at the opportunity to take it. So most people who go there, the whole getting there, the seeing it, the being there, I hate to say this, but it feels like we could be a Mexican restaurant, an Italian restaurant. People would still come there because it's worth going to as a day trip, or as not just to be in this different part of California you've never been to. So we try and gild that lily by making it the service great, the drinks great, the food great, and then it's truly word of mouth, And yearly, so at Archetype we were open 5 brunch, 5 dinner. Here we've been open 5 dinners, 1 brunch. The receipts have been the same as up there on Main Street in St. Helena. As so we get people to come down there, like and hopefully more this spring and this summer.
Oh,
yeah, we do the all-day Sunday brunch thing. So dinner and brunch all day from 11 to 7. We're going to expand those hours. I smoke meat. We smoke meat every Sunday. So at 2 o'clock, either ribs or brisket or comes out. In the summer, we have some music out there on the patio. There's a little creek out there, some grapefruit trees. It's just like an idyllic place to, be. So just social media now is how we maybe
you do it.
Maybe somebody here will listen to this and decide to come on.
Goddamn right, chef. Some cook out there here. I want to work for that guy.
Yeah. Or just come down. Or just come down and
have a bite.
Have some vittles. Yeah.
Tell him Sucio sent you.
Yeah, tell him that, please.
They'll be like, Chef, I just got harassed. That's fun. Well, dude, fucking thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down, being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Let me talk your ear off.
Fuck, I love it. It's so Some people ask me, like, who's this show for? You know, it's like, who's your target demographic? And at this point, I think it's going more and more towards the kids, you know, the guys who are coming into the industry, girls who are coming into the industry, just sort of wanting a place, you know, to call home, to find their people. And this is, I think, the rawest account of any of that that there is out there. You know, there's no sugarcoating here. There's no fucking montage at the beginning of you walking into, you know, the farmer's market and gathering all your ingredients. Like, no, you're a fucking hardcore chef who's working the line and mentoring young cooks. Like, that is what it is. That's the game. That's what a chef is, you know?
Right.
And there's a lot of different opinions of what a chef is now with the TikTok people and all that. I don't take food away from anybody's mouth, you know? But cooking on TikTok and cooking on social media is very different from what you do, from what I've done. And I feel like the respect is definitely there for the craft. I just think that this is a different way of looking at it.
I definitely couldn't never do that. I would just be able to perform in front of people in some sort of way that'd be palatable or desirable to look at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. I have no aptitude in that.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So respect to them.
What is the address of Bull Valley Road so people can find it?
Oh, shit.
And how do we find you on social media? Like, how do we hit you up?
Okay, so it's 14 Canyon Lake Drive.
Okay.
So if you're in Crockett, it's under the bridge. It's 1 3-mile road that takes you right there where the road ends. We're there. Mm-hmm. So I'd say Google it. You'll see some pictures. People that visit me are just like halfway down. They'll text me, am I going the right way? Just keep going.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. You know, it's definitely worth coming out to. As far as me, I'm APEY. I'm AP at 1010@yahoo.com. Mm-hmm. I know at, sorry.
Is that your email?
That's my email. Doesn't matter. It's the same shit. I'm AP on 1010 on Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm AP 1010 on Instagram, yeah. And all I post is food shit, occasional post of my wife or my cats. Mm-hmm. That's food. But come on down, say hello. You know, give us a try.
Fuck yeah, chef.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, fuck yeah.
Sucio Talk Podcast. Realest motherfucking podcast out there. Peace out.
Cheers, man. You made that easy.
Yeah.
I did really go off there.